welcome. Thank you for being with us again tonight. I see familiar faces. It's been a beautiful day, right? So we are really pleased to have with us Ms. Fowler-Mack, who comes to us from Cleveland Metropolitan School. And so just right up the road. And so it's a pleasure to have her with us tonight. We are going to stick to our format. She's going to have the opportunity at the beginning of that first 20 minutes or so to share her vision for the Akron Public Schools. And then we're going to dive into the questions that we have. And I've gotten a couple new ones too to work with. So we'll throw those into the mix. And as we have done each night, please, we'll start over here to the left. Just go around and introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, and then we will get started. So over here to the left, table 3.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah, that's you.
Sorry, I'm Flora Dees, retired educator of Akron Public Schools and retired executive director of Project Red Akron.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Demetra Zimmer-Faulkner. I'm a mother. I have 4 children who've been in and out of the APS system at different times. Currently a student at Miller's Health, and happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, Beacon Journal. Go ahead. Yeah, we'll go.
Hi, my name is Denise Brandon. I didn't say yesterday, a proud graduate of Cooper High School and Cooper Cluster. And my daughter attends Miller South Performing Arts School, and I am very happy to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Hi, I'm KT Palmer Hampton. I have 3 daughters. I actually have one at Miller South. She's an 8th grader. I have another 8th grader at Our Lady of the Elms. They're twins. And then I have a 10th grader at Akron Early College. And they all went to Resnick and Miller South.
Right.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lynn Swoop. I'm a proud graduate of Firestone High School, born and raised in Akron, matriculated through the Akron Public School System. I have 3 kids. All my kids have been in private school, so they've been at Old Trail. So I've been an Old Trail parent for like 18 years. My middle child just circled back to Akron Public, so he's at STEM. I'm on the Old Trail School Board, and I'm happy to be back with Akron Public.
Great. Thank you for being here.
Hi, my name's Eric Gordon. I'm a friend and colleague of Ms. Fowler-Mack.
Thank you for being here.
My name is Alexa Schuler. I have one at Kenmore, Garfield, and one at Bridges, which is an alternative buildings. And I am the Kenmore Garfield cluster representative for the Akron Council of PTAs.
Hi, my name is Jada Nancy, and I am a proud graduate of Booker High School. And my sons are, one is at the middle school, STEM middle school in the 8th grade. And my oldest son is graduating from STEM high school next month. And I'm the PTA president for the STEM middle school.
Excellent. Thank you. Love your mask. Very dazzling. And so I don't forget to do it. I'm Steve Wortham with the Ohio School Boards Association. I've been working with the school board through this process. And that process has brought Christine Fowler-Mack to us tonight. And so with that said, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Steve. And good evening. Good evening, Akron family. I'm really, really pleased to be here with you today. And before I begin some prepared remarks, I want to just point, I believe they're going to be broadcasting on the screens on either side so that you'll be able to see some slides that go with some of the prepared remarks that I have. But I also want to just take the opportunity first to give thanks. First, thank you to you all, first and foremost, for coming out after what I'm sure has been a very busy day, and to be here with me this evening and with the district this evening is a true testament to your concern and your awareness that this is really an important decision. There has been great leadership that has been in place for Akron for a long period of time, and so this is quite a transition after a 13-year contribution with Superintendent James. I do always give honor to Superintendent James to Dr. McWilliams-Woods, again, for their leadership and for really laying a very strong foundation, which makes this a very, very attractive leadership opportunity. I also need to take just a minute of personal point to say thank you to my colleague and my boss, Eric Gordon, who it's just tremendous to work in an environment where you feel supported and appreciated and valued. And I have benefited from that and been entrusted to lead. And so, and as much as he has entrusted me to lead, he also has said at points in time, you know, kind of fly birdie, you're ready to go on and touch other students when the right opportunity presents itself. So I appreciate you being here with me today. Dr. Dees is a blast from my past, and I have to take a privilege. Part of the standards that I hold today about leadership were normed as I was a student and an early educator coming through the Akron system. And even the part I'm often told at work, you dress up every day. Why do you do that? But I remember so vividly Dr. Dees first setting that example, but also really talking to young and upcoming leaders about that we were modeling for our students and that our students deserved our best. And so it deserved us to bring our best selves to work each and every day. And that has always stuck with me, and I really appreciate that. Time together today, I hope to do a couple of things. I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes and really share with you so that you have a sense of who I am as a leader and kind of what has my background been and what it has brought me to believe and value in leadership and in value in working in partnership with families and with the community in support of our children. So I'm going to share a bit about me, then I'm going to share with you some initial thinking that I have about a vision for the system. Again, a system that has really solid footing, but that is really positioned well to accelerate success and transform even more over time. So I'm going to share with you a vision, and then I hope we have a chance to dialogue. And I love that the room is intimate, so we will really have a chance to, for me to answer some questions and to dialogue a bit further. So I'm going to start with a pictorial representation of my roots. I think already I have stated that I'm from Akron. I'm a lifelong educator, but I was nurtured, educated, cared for in this system. And I was fortunate enough to go to Barber Elementary School, where a leader touched my life forever there. My principal, Abby E. Willisey, was, I believe, the first African-American principal here in the Akron public school system. So not only was she a leader with very, very high standards, she modeled and nurtured and touched her students. So as I went through my K-5 years, I often looked in the eyes of someone that I knew I could become one day. And that has forever left an impact on my life. I eventually graduated from East High School, having participated very greatly in all that East High had to offer, the student activities, government, sports, things of that nature. And that too stuck with me, to understand the benefit of having an array of ways in which you can connect to your school community and that you can begin to test out what it is that your interests, ideas, your strengths, things of that nature. I then I went to the Akron University, became an educator, came back, and was selected, luckily, to be able to teach in the Akron system. And I taught at Robinson Academy under a powerful leader at the time, Larry Marshall, there and have maintained contact to this day with the teaching staff that I worked with at that building. So there have been lots of formative touches along the way. Looking back to my high school experience though, as successful as I was in the school and as powerful as the culture and climate was on me as a forming leader, I found myself, once I graduated, not quite sure what my next steps were. I knew I was supposed to go to college, but I had not done college visits. I didn't really understand how to navigate a college system, those sorts of things. I'm from Akron, so you know we have good roots and we stick with and persist in things. So I was able to regroup very quickly and to find my way, and I did find myself on a strong path, and I am an educator to this day, so I did find success, but that stuck with me. It stuck with me to say, you know what, our students and anybody that is influenced by me as an educator moving forward needs to be prepared when they graduate. They need to have had some experiences that help them explore their strengths, that help them have some knowledge about the post-secondary world, whether they are going straight to college, if they are going to explore careers, if they are enlisting, that they really understand how to take that next step. And especially all children. So again, I think I presented as if I had it all together. And so people assumed I had a plan. And but we want to, intentional systems, make sure they really take those steps to making sure that there is preparation, and to that stuck with me. So many lessons that have stuck with me. Those lessons have developed into a set of values that I hold to this day. And so some of the things I have come to know as I became an educator, worked as a teacher, worked as an elementary principal, a middle school principal, a central office leader, those sorts of things, is that the traits, the values that leaders hold matters greatly. So in consideration of me as a potential leader for the system, I wanted to be transparent about what some of those values are that I hold. Values that span the realm from integrity to teamwork to being outcome oriented. So I care very deeply for those that I work for, those that I work with, those that I work on behalf of. And in doing so, I maintain very high expectations and high integrity in the process. With those values, there are some principles that I feel like are pretty important for you to understand. If you thought about, you know, how do you make decisions? How do you consider, how do you consider information and make decisions? There are some core principles that are very near and dear to me, and therefore they influence my lens and my thinking. First and foremost amongst those is this notion of academic excellence. Again, as being an advocate always for our students, I believe that our students deserve the very best teaching and learning experience possible. So they deserve the highest quality of instruction. They deserve climates that are supportive and balanced with press and support, where they have rigorous work that is culturally responsive, and that their leadership is highly engaged. So academic excellence, as I'm making decisions, as I'm considering things, I want to know to what degree will this result in academic excellence for our young people, because we only have so much time and so many resources, and we need to be able to prioritize and make the best decisions possible. Not second, so these are not ordered by importance, but also very extremely important is the having very strong family and community engagement. Part of my formative experience with Abby E. Willesee at Barber Elementary was the relationship that she built with my family. I saw that they were working together in partnership. That stuck with me. First of all, it set very clear boundaries about what I could and could not do, but it also made it very clear that it took that type of partnership to be able to support students. So family and community engagement, developing partnerships with families, with the community is something that as I consider, I'm always looking for the opportunity to make that possible and to make that highly effective. As well, thinking about equity of access and opportunity. One of the things that I know to be true about Akron is that we have many, many bright spots that are within our collection of schools. And many of you who are here today are affiliated with our highest performing schools, which is great. The challenge is that isn't the case for every last one of our schools. And to be the top urban district in the nation, which is one of the vision statements that the Akron Board and community has for itself, we really have to ensure that in an equitable way, that all of our schools are high achieving and that there is equitable access to opportunity, to support, to the access to the highest quality teachers possible. So really, I love the fact that at this point in time, part of what was said in the search is we're looking for a leader who understands issues of equity and is willing to lead through that lens. I think again, that it's not that I'm looking for a job, but that the fact that this appears to be the right opportunity at the right time for something not only that I care about deeply, but that I do believe is in the best interest of our students. And lastly, this notion of joyful and adventurous learning. When I think about my very own children, I do want them taught at a very high level. I want them challenged and supported, but I also want them inspired to dream, inspired to take risk, inspired to learn more about themselves. And I think that our classrooms, we have to ensure that our classrooms and our schools are vibrant environments that create that opportunity in teaching and learning every day. It's not a trade-off. In order for you to have rigorous instruction and achievement doesn't mean that you have to give up the opportunity for it to be joyful, for it to be in some ways playful at times, but still very purposeful and meaningful. So joy and adventure is something that I think a lot about in terms of core principles. I come to you today not just with a lot of ideas, but also with experience. And so what you see on the screen, I'm not going to go through that list, but I did think it was important to be able to detail out what have you done? You know, what types of skills, what types of knowledge, what types of leadership opportunities have you had that you could share with the Akron community, with our families who will be entrusting the most important people in their lives, their children, under my care, you know, that you would know that I am coming to this opportunity with experience of leading significant bodies of work that help us plan for enhanced environments for children, experiences that helped our district and our board make decisions when faced with resources that gather the input of families like you and community persons at large to say, here is what the information is, here is our goal, here are our resources, help us make those types of decisions, keeping in mind the needs of our children. And so when thinking about, you know, this opportunity, I would be able to bring that experience. And then one of the themes I talk about often is expanding and accelerating the work of the system, so I would be able to expand my repertoire of leadership as well, being informed by who you are and the ideas that you hold for your children. I did take the time to create a vision statement because I first and foremost really want to be clear about of all of the things I think about Akron and its future. You know, how would I say that? How would I bring that together? And so in an initial sense, because any type of leadership vision I ultimately hold would need to be informed even further through the guidance, input, and direction of the board. But right now, I'd just like to share with you from a parent's point of view. So I had on my parent hat as I was writing, and I hope you hear that and sense that. But my vision then for Akron Public Schools is that it is an organization where scholars graduate fully prepared for college, careers, and life, regardless of the pathway they choose. So, and so remember, there's not an or there, it's an and there, so that they're fully prepared for college, careers, and life. That the academic achievement is possible for all because caring educators provide authentic, joyful learning experiences, and a dedicated community provides meaningful supports that ensures the academic success, social, emotional growth, and independent entrepreneurial spirit for every child. We want to educate fierce students, even at very young ages with agency, where they feel like we are working on their behalf, where even our students have voice and choice in their educational process, and where they are contributors once they leave our care, that they see themselves as giving back, as really actively engaged citizens. So as I initially think about this Akron opportunity, that is an initial vision, and I look forward to potentially expanding that with your thoughts and ideas. Is full of assets, and there are many terms I could use to describe Akron, the big, broader sense, not just the school system, but the city itself. I think one of the things that is most attractive is that it is a city that is diverse. So the people are very important, and there is a diversity in the people. There are great amounts of leadership in all facets of the organization. There is community, there is commitment, there is innovation occurring that continues to move us forward. We want to be able in a position to really leverage that on behalf of our students. That is occurring now, and we have the opportunity to expand and accelerate that work. I created a few goals specifically in thinking about how might I enter, so if given the opportunity, how might I enter this position? How might I enter into a partnership in working with families, working with staff? Oh, sorry about that. Move it back. And in working with the community. So I came up with, here it is, 10 goals. And so the first two of which have to do with building relationships. So spending the time being intentional to build trusting, collaborative, effective relationships with stakeholders and with the board. Also too, and not in order of importance, is really important to really think about having some explicit plans for dealing with the learning loss and impacts of the pandemic, so that we are really intentional about this year and how it is that we not only help students recover, but thrive. And so we really want to approach it not from a remedial plan, but to think about how are we targeted, how are we intentional about keeping kids exposed to grade level content, but with the appropriate supports that allow them to fill in the gaps and then really continue to be enriched and thrive moving forward. So that is, to me, when the board asked me, what is your highest priority at this point in time for entering APS? That was the response that I gave. The highest priority is acknowledging where we are at this moment in time and then addressing that. And then building upon all the success and expanding where we have bright spots, ensuring that there is a smooth transition to leadership, again, after such stellar and steady tenure, and then building the excitement. Lastly, that last goal is I'm really passionate about being able to tell the Akron story more effectively. Today, I had the opportunity to visit with teachers and students at Ellett High School as a part of my school visit, and I was accompanied by the Plain Dealer reporter, and I heard her at one point say, like, wow, I haven't been in here before. I didn't know all of this was occurring. And I bet you there are a lot of people that drive by the schools on a regular basis and don't have a full understanding about what successful things that are happening, ways that they can greater contribute to what's happening there and or support. And so we really want to more effectively bear into telling the Akron story. In essence, we want to expand and accelerate things that are occurring here in learning, in climate, in culture. In doing so, we will be targeted in our actions. Targeted first, as I talked about earlier, in the supports that we're providing, not only for students, but for staff. There is some capacity building that presents itself as an opportunity right now in working with our staff, and then also in working with our families. I'm sure each of you could talk about ways in which the system could be even more effective in supporting you and or your neighbors and things of that nature. And we want to be listening and learning so that we can effectively lead in that regard. So thinking about those supports. One of the things that I put together to share with the board so that it gave them a sense as well about my thinking and planning style was I shared with them a draft of what a entry plan might look like. So what might my really purposeful actions be in the first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, that sort of thing. And chief amongst those is this notion of, I know that even with all of my great experiences as a child and as an early teacher coming through the Akron system, I have not been a part of the system in a really engaged way in a long time. So I have a great deal to learn. So really being effective with listening and learning before I lead is something I'm committed to. So making myself available to do that, creating transition teams where there are transition advisory teams of students, middle school students, high school students who are advising leadership, of parents and community members that are advising leadership. And this gives you an array of what some of those questions might be. It's not a static list, so if you say, Mrs. Fowler-Mack, you didn't quite hit it, there's another question that should be asked, very open to revising them. I think the heart of the message that I'd like to share with you is I really do want our team moving forward, and especially as we think about accelerating the vision, expanding the vision that we have for our young people to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our families at the end of the day. When it's all said and done, this is a quote that I dearly love by someone I deeply admire. So it's a quote that I selected from LeBron James because I always resonated with his story. He's someone that benefited from the community, and so really held great affection for him, and he came back to give back. And so, but one of the things I love about his approach is he thinks team first. And that's something that really aligns with my core leadership style, thinking team first. And in doing so, he's able to be successful. Those that he's serving are able to be successful. The goals are able to be met. And so I love that quote and have it hanging up in my office. Speaking of team, I too benefit greatly from a team. So one of the other hats I wear besides educator is I wear the hat of mom. And so on the screen, and I also wear the hat of wife. And so I'm the wife of a retired police officer he was a police officer for 35 years, ended his career in the community response division, building positive relationships with community. Actually, before it was kind of vogue. Now we see a lot of effort in that regard. But, and then I also had a 10th grader and a 2nd grader. And I told the last group that's a story for a different time. So why that is so, but I am a mom. And so oftentimes when I'm sitting in meetings, when I'm working with principals, when I'm working with partners, I'm able to bring in the experience through my heart as well as through my head, because I experience every day very high aspirations. I'm also a daughter, and so very heavily engaged in my nuclear family as well. And my parents live in Akron, and so so there is a high expectation for, again, the leadership on a very, very personal level. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to come out, to hear my story, to hear some of what I've been thinking about as I consider the opportunity to join the leadership team, to join the community of the Akron Public Schools. Want to turn it back to you, Steve?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you for sharing with us. So now we're going to dive a little bit deeper with the questions that we have here. So I'll start off with this one. Akron has accomplished much through stable leadership and many people in central office who were first APS teachers, parents, and/or students. How do you plan to build upon the existing structures while introducing your own initiatives?
Right, and I think the latter part of that question is where I would begin. So it would be my expectation to build upon, again, what is working in the system. And in terms of it, Akron has had a great deal of stable tenure and a lot of talent that exists in the system. And my ultimate goal is to ensure that the highest level of talent is available for the young people that are served in this system. So wherever that comes from. So I do know that there is a great deal of talent in the system, and I am ready and willing to support that talent and having the opportunity to lead. And then I also hope that we continue to have a talent-seeking mindset to attract, retain, support, develop the highest quality of persons available at the teacher level, at the leadership level.
What is one example of a big idea that you might try to accomplish to highlight APS as a leader in education across the state and country?
Yes, I actually think, and I was talking with the teachers earlier today about the work being done in equity. And so there is great work that's being done to think about how do we ensure that each and every one of our schools have what they need, that schools then are our highest achieving schools are working with schools who are struggling, those communities, to share ideas. So I really hope one of the ideas that we're able to accomplish through this equity work is developing some new and out-of-the-box partnerships between communities, where communities are able to work together, where we're able to attract even more persons to join the work. One of the things I saw in the sessions that was done ahead of the search, those focus group sessions, I read all of those responses, and there seemed to be a theme of some persons that feel like, I want to be involved, I want to help, I just don't know how. So to really start to work on how do we expand the coalition of persons who can bring their talents. So everybody can't do the same thing. There might be people out there that just say, hey, I'm great at social media. I don't want to sit elbow to elbow and tutor, but if you give us information, I can make sure to use something I love, which is communicating with others and to spread that word. There might be others who have skills or interest in some of their hobbies, whether it's graphic design, things of that nature, that are saying, you know what, are there even ways with using the technology reach, which we discovered has many levels of possibility during the COVID transition, where we might, again, partner with and assist students in making their learning experiences more rich. So working on partnerships as we expand the story of APS and look to reach students in motivational ways even more are some of the ideas I have.
Thank you. Akron has invested in their college and career academies. What do you envision for these programs while you are superintendent? And grades 6 to 8 be affected in your vision for the future of APS high schools? What improvements will be made to the middle schools?
Right, and I do think that that is the next level of work. And I'm aware that Akron has begun to do some thinking and planning in that regard. So in terms of the college and career academies themselves, they are off to a very strong start with great support. There seems to be wide community awareness of what is trying to be accomplished, both in the big picture of just improving teaching and learning every day, but actually in that other and important goal of ensuring that kids have exposure and opportunity before they graduate. So I think that it is my responsibility, the team's responsibility, to deepen that work, to really assess where we are, where we have opportunities to really expand partners, to create even greater opportunities, or to assess the quality of some of those partnerships and opportunities. And maybe there are some that need to be modified in some respects. You can't just address your high schools without understanding the pipeline. So to also be working simultaneously on your middle school and making sure that while in the middle grades, students, again, first and foremost in teaching and learning, understand how to engage in a rich project-based approach, that they also start to understand more about themselves so that they can make great choices of which high school would help them really lean into their passions and interests, is something that becomes greatly important. So attending to the middle school would be a priority, but also too, thinking about what does that even mean for our littlest learners? And so what are the types of exposures, really making solid their skill sets at that age as well, so that there is a seamless transition that says, when they're very young, we're going to expose them, understand that there is a great big world, that there are many opportunities within this world, so that as they get into the middle school, there are choices that we want to start exposing you to, so that when they get into high school, they can even be more targeted. It is a seamless approach. One of the pieces that might be an opportunity that to explore as another idea is to begin to explore too the early childhood space, and to see, is there the opportunity to expand and deeper and develop more completely the preschool experience. And I think that's an area that hasn't, really been taken to scale in the system, but might be something that the board may be interested in and you as the community. So we'll be very interested in hearing your feedback.
All of the buildings were redesigned as community learning centers. How do you envision the role of these hubs realistically extending to offer health and social services or arts and cultural programming to the community in the aftermath of the pandemic?
Yeah, I think that's a real opportunity. That's a great question with an embedded suggestion. And so I think we really said, we understand that the renewal, the opportunity to inspire through health services, through social emotional supports is needed. And the fact that we already have established community learning centers gives us a central hub with which to plan for those things really, really intentionally. I do know too that there already has been some work done in the system to have family resource centers in certain ones of the schools. And so there are a few underway with plans to even expand that approach in partnership with United Way. And so that also offers a great deal of wraparound resource type supports to families. So again, I think there is a very strong foundation with the opportunity to do great work.
The merger of the Kenmore Garfield cluster was not without controversy. What steps would you take to try to help unify those communities, knowing that they were once rivals?
Right. Right. And so part of what becomes necessary, because as communities, it's not always possible when you don't have the same level of population to still continue all of the schools. So it is natural at some point in time there will have to be adjustments. And I know a lot of thought, planning and support went into making those decisions. The decisions should not stop short of just providing the facility. Part of our responsibility and the opportunity is to help the communities engage, to be intentional about how it is that a new community is built together that continues to honor the legacy, the traditions of each of the respective schools, but that then comes together to build a picture of a future that those communities are trying to create together. So to really engage the communities in coming together to decide, at this point, who do we want to become? Not only in terms of, and then what goals will help us get there, to do some intentional relationship steps with the children being influenced by the adults. So the children seeing that the adults, community members are also actively taking steps to work together are some of the ways I think you would get started.
Thank you. So what is your experience with special education? What is your understanding regarding best practices in helping the families of special education students feel welcome, wanted, and included in the district?
Right, and so my experience is, again, being an educator who served children with special needs, and then being an administrator for many, many years who worked with families and worked with educators in that regard. I have all of the technical skill. I also have the heart and understanding for knowing that we have to engage our families as partners in the process. Families, we are creating a vision for the future for their child through the individualized plan. So sometimes I think we get too technical and think about it just in terms of academic goals and objectives and targets and things of that nature, and don't step back and really think about what our vision is for that child, and to really develop a partnership that the teachers working together with the parents, working together with support providers in the school are really in partnership. So I think providing the training and support, ensuring that there are protocols for how things should occur that help increase the likelihood that parents are welcomed as partners, ensuring that the lines of communication are open so that when or if we miss the mark, that we can correct ourselves, that is known and it can be corrected, becomes also really important.
Thank you. So Akron has a large immigrant population, particularly in North Akron. What is your experience working with immigrant families? What steps would you take to ensure the district can meet the needs of these families and support the teachers who have been trying to do so in that area?
Right, and so there are in many of our cities a growing immigrant population. We too in Cleveland have even greater diversity with every given year and have a growing immigrant population. One of the strategies that we've done there is to create under Eric's leadership, a Newcomers Academy that has very specialized both targeted support for those students, but also wraparound supports to assist the families and the educators working with the students as we ensure that they get off to a great start and are able to be very, very successful in their classrooms. That Newcomers Academy was born out of some best practice, just understanding what are some of the moves that districts and schools do make to support immigrant children effectively. And so making sure that we have exposure to those types of ideas in our system, that we take the time to assess what is currently the experience of our immigrant families and where we have the first best opportunity to be able to improve upon that experience, what those supports are, would be very important.
Thank you. So here's an interesting scenario-based question. You are at the engagement center when a parent comes in asking what steps he or she needs to take because they will be switching their child to a charter school due to their dissatisfaction with APS. To approach that parent, would you try to convince the parent to give APS another chance? Why or why not?
Yes, absolutely. So I think I have been in that situation before and have faced parents that were disappointed with service that they've received through the system. And always, I want to be an advocate for the system. So I do want to first understand what their needs are and to understand what their experience has been and to see if there is the opportunity for recovery to best support their students. So absolutely, we want to attract, retain our students in our school system. At the end of the day, I want to be clear that we want our students in the best places possible for them and their families. So if our families feel that actually the best place is for their students, we would not in any way become a barrier to that, but I sure would do everything within my power to hear them and to be able to ensure that the experience is addressed and that we have the high opportunity of keeping them in the APS family.
So parent and family engagement and involvement is something that APS has repeatedly said they would like to see improved. How would you respond to parents and or caregivers who say that they simply have too much on their plate to be involved? What ideas do you have for programs, resources, etc., to make APS more parent or caregiver friendly?
Right, and so, I agree. I think we live in a busy world, and we care deeply and are trying to do a lot. First and foremost, I don't simply define involvement as sitting in a seat, sitting right, here, because I too feel like I'm very involved in the life of my child and in my children's schools and things of that nature, but because I put so much into my day-to-day job, I can't be at everything. And so I think, thinking about involvement and engagement in a broad sense, that there are many ways to be involved, that could accommodate and work with the different times that parents have. Also, I think being selective, not just viewing the fact that having a lot of activity is effective parent engagement. So I think really spending time with families, understanding what is it, the types of things that would be additive and wouldn't just seem like that you have to do it, that you're obligated because you're committed. And so we don't want that to be the case. So again, I need to do some learning and some listening, but I do think all in all, parent engagement and community engagement, those types of things can be come in many different forms.
In a world focused on STEM and a district centered on college and career readiness, what role do the fine and performing arts play in the education of all students, not just those who attend the performing arts schools?
Right, I believe very deeply that the arts ought to be integrated, that a quality program, a quality educational experience, that it's not an either or, that it really is embedding the fine arts, that it's a part of the exposure, the enrichment, the set of opportunities that we want to provide for our students. So really, I think a wonderful example of that today was when I visited the Elliott Community Center, because one of the things I asked them about, you know, we could kind of check it off, you know, talk to me about your pathways in your school that support STEM focus. You know, they were able to take me there. Talk to me and show me where the fine arts opportunities are for students. And we were able to really see those programs, really highly effective programs as well. So I think it's not an either or. I think it matters greatly. I think there are ways to apply where the fine arts, that it is both for appreciation, it is also for inspiration as students learn their core content.
So here's one from a parent. Many students took their core classes during virtual learning 5 times in a 2-week period. Because of this, I believe some of our students will be deficit in these core areas. What will you do to bridge the gap for our students this summer and the next school year?
Right, and so one of the things I just recently saw was a draft of the plans that are being developed for Akron for this summer. And so in the timing sense, I think for the new leadership transition, I might have an opportunity to deepen and expand. A lot of that planning though is underway. And the great news is that the team is thinking in that regard. So in the questions, so they are thinking about how do we help our students recover, but also they're thinking a lot about how do we enrich the experience for our students, because they're also, the year was hard. And I don't think we would be able to convince our students to engage if this was all about recovering, recovering content, addressing deficits. We also ought to have enrichment experiences and things where they can also do some work to address the learning loss or the gaps in what they know to do, but also ways in which they can feel like they're being enriched, that they're having some fun, that they're able to build relationships with their peers. So that type of model is being thought through and planned for presently. And if I had the opportunity, I would love to partner up and ask to really add some additional ideas.
Thank you. The majority of APS are on the low performance and voucher list, some going on 10 years. How do you plan to tackle that? This is the question that has been asked the most during the PTA polling.
Right, and I agree. When I think I spoke about this earlier, in looking at the academic data, while being very proud of the bright spots, there is great disparity, like there are a set of, kind of ABC schools, and then there are a set of F schools. And so there is a difference. And those, when you think about who are the students attending those schools, many of the students attending those schools are faced with some of the other challenges where there's a trajectory where families have really struggled. So again, approaching this vision of excellence for all of our schools and for all of our children, we have to think about it through the lens of equity. It might mean that for those schools that are underserved, we have to do different, we have to do additional, we've got to get them onto a pathway of success, because what we want is for our students, again, to be prepared for college, careers, and life to live well. So we also want them to be successful in their next steps so that they are transition figures, they are change agents for their families. At the same time, through efforts like the Family Resource Centers that we want to take more broadly, we also want to continue to build the capacity of our families to understand how they too can grow and develop with their students, to take advantage of opportunities to be better suited for the future, which is providing even new and different career paths as we continue on. So there needs to be some very intentional target work. I think the concern fits naturally with the district's commitment around equity.
Okay. So describe a time you were given an educational or equity metric to turn around towards success. What challenges did the project face? How did you set objectives? And what were the key results?
Right. And so when I think about a time, I guess I would think about what we just talked about, turning around the academic trajectory of a school building. And so that was kind of the challenge. We have a failing school. And so how might you approach that school? And at the time, there was a great deal of turnaround research that really talked about a lot of targeted instructional strategies I could go to the table and engage in a planning process with the school team around targeted strategies, but that usually isn't very motivational. And so it doesn't create the greatest degrees of buy-in. Whereas if we work not only with the school team, but to have other interested parties, parents, community members, willing partners to come to the table together, to co-construct, to work together, to construct a vision for that school, something that builds excitement amongst them, that they're willing to commit and to buy into. So some of the questions we would ask is, are you excited about this? Do you think we have the right moves on the table to really move the needle for kids? And once we feel like we have a plan that is reflective of that, that has those evidence-based strategies, we were able to move the work forward. I think the end result of that work kind of at scale is kind of a metric we're really proud of in Cleveland. Because when we started the work, our graduation rate was 52% of students graduating from high school. And then where we sit later, about 10 years later now, because it's been a steady increase every single year. So not one year have we gone backwards in our metric. We're now at 80%. In terms of 80.2%, in terms of our students graduating from high school, and even less, more and more, graduating less and less with the need for remediation if they were to go on to college. And so there is the stats there that says the efforts have worked. It required a great deal of monitoring. It also required a great deal of buy-in. It wasn't without challenge because we had to secure that buy-in. It was asking then the adults in the schools to operate differently, but it was successful nonetheless.
Thank you, thank you. And in our last bit of time together here, I want you to tell us about someone who was an important mentor to you and how that person influenced your leadership style.
right? Wow, so an important mentor to me. I have quite a few. One person I would say that has been an important mentor to me probably was the principal who hired me first in Akron, Larry Marshall, who is no longer with us, but was just a leader, I would say, before his time. So back in the, late 80s, 90s, when I started, he was a leader that was guided by using data. He was a leader that spent a great deal of time on community building. And I would say to this day, I think the fact that I am a leader that believes in being clear about the results I'm trying to achieve, I would attribute to his influence and his accountability of each of us who worked within that school environment on behalf of students. And I also would attribute his style of being very inclusive in inviting perspective, inviting diversity in thought, to being very influential on my style. I am one, though, that I have had the wonderful opportunity. I just feel like my path has been blessed in that I've fallen in with great leaders and with great teachers that have influenced my life along the way.
Thank you. And that concludes our time that we have together tonight. But thank you so much for sharing all that you have with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for entrusting your children to the Akron Public Schools.
Remember, please